This is the KBIS series, recorded live from the KBIS podcast studio. The kitchen may be the heart of the home, but specifiers are the pulse of the profession. These are the inside stories, the decisions, strategies, and intelligence that turn ideas into incredible design. Thanks for listening to the KBIS sessions, recorded live in the KBIS podcast studio, presented by AJ Madison. The conversation today is beyond the price tag, defining luxury in appliances and design. This nuanced conversation explores the evolving meaning of luxury through multiple industry perspectives, featuring Devoree Axelrod, General Manager at AJ Madison, alongside industry expert and Luxe Interiors and Design Editor-in-Chief, Jill Cohen. Luxury can be expensive, but it can also be subtle, practical, or deeply personal. Sometimes it's about choice, sometimes restraint, sometimes the way a space or product simply works better for you. Through thoughtful discussion, the episode examines how luxury shows up in appliances and design through performance, comfort, longevity, and everyday ease, and why it resonates differently for everyone over time. Luxury isn't a price point. It's a performance standard. You're going to hear different ideas about the word luxury, which many will say is probably the most overused word in design vernacular. But it's important here because it represents so many different things. Luxury is the measurable outcome of thoughtful design, where performance, longevity, and relevance align to support the way people actually live. Luxury is the removal of friction from everyday life. Luxury is durability, alignment with intent. Luxury is design that continues to perform long after the purchase is forgotten. Luxury is confidence in function, longevity, and fit. Luxury is not what you spend. It's what you never have to rethink. And we talk about that a lot in the following conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey everyone, welcome to KBIS. I have been looking forward to this conversation since we first spoke a week ago. Week ago? 2 weeks ago? It's all a blur, isn't it?
Yes. It's a blur of snow flurries.
And we're going to get into that too.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, isn't it, when you're locked inside your house during weather events, you really get to learn, and you have a special relationship with your home, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's true. So do me a favor, Devoree, tell me a little bit about you. Introduce yourself for me, would you?
Sure. So I'm Devoree Axelrod. I work for AJ Madison. I've been with the company for almost 20 years. This year will be my 20th anniversary. I'm the general manager, so I'm responsible for the growth of the company and obviously the overall health as well. When I started with the company, we were one store in Brooklyn, and we were together with a pretty extensive website, and we've grown over time. We now have a store in Miami, a store in DC, a store in Atlanta, and soon to be a store in Houston opening in May. I'm also a mom of 5 and 1 bonus child, and I'm very excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. So how many soccer games do you find yourself going to on any given weekend?
So we have a good system, and I don't have to go to any.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah, the games are, within the school environment, and so they go straight from school, or they go by themselves. It's a little bit of a different setup than the typical soccer mom environment, but it works well. I go to the season end championship games, so
there you
yes,
go.
It's a good setup. And they're also on Sunday, so if they want me to come, I'm able to go.
I love that. Jill, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me about yourself.
So I am the editor-in-chief of Luxe Interiors and Design, and I joined the company 2 years ago after many decades in book publishing, where I focused on interior design and architecture books. So I've been in this industry for my whole life and love being at Luxe because I'm a print lover, and I, have kind of spent my career showcasing this talent of designers and architects and all the craftsmanship and partners that we have that create beautiful products. So I have a nice big platform to do that.
Yeah, and like you, I am a fan of print as well. There's just something, it's that tactile experience of the pages.
Well, I think now we are on such digital overload. I love digital. I love looking at Instagram, but after you can't be on for hours. It's just a constant interruption of, sensory overload. So sitting down with a magazine, paging through, being able to spend a few minutes on a picture and really taking a deep dive into really the creativity I'm always looking for pictures that have layers of creativity and, taking that little armchair travel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was excited leading into this conversation as well. Beyond the price tag is what we're talking about. And I think, defining luxury in appliances and design is so important right now. Look, we've had a challenging year on the business side, and I think that's made everyone kind of take a look back inward to figure out how to do business better. Luxury is no longer defined by price alone. In a market roiled by supply chain issues and disruptions, tariffs, social media pressure, and shifting client expectations, which is a really important one, budget has become fungible, flexible, emotional, misunderstood. And we're on the side of the industry where you have to parse it, translate it, and understand it, leading me to, so Jill, you have a survey coming out.
Yes, actually.
And a really interesting issue that's coming out later this year. Tell me about it.
Well, we now have proof of what you're talking about. We are doing an extraordinary new issue, something we've never done before at Luxe. If everyone knows our magazine, we have 16 different regions. And this is going to be our July-August issue, which is going to be one common 100 pages of editorial that will appear across the nation. And we went out and surveyed 1,000 industry professionals, really everyone at the top of their game, probably the most published interior designers, architects, landscape professionals, kitchen designers, builders, and they're people that have done books and graced the covers of all the big magazines. And basically what we learned was the number one homeowner investment across every region is in the kitchen. It's the number one place. And it's really 2 or 3 components in the kitchen are the big budget busters. When I say budget buster, it's the one place where somebody knows what they want and they're willing to go over budget to get what they want.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that the kitchen is really the center of the home. It's a place of gathering for the family. And food is an emotional connection for a family. Food creates memories. And so when a family is planning their kitchen, I think they really want to think about how they're going to use the space and what they're going to do in the space. And when they really think about that, I think that's one of the reasons that a budget is obviously important, but they're willing to extend above that budget.
Well, not only that, but what we're finding in the survey is material appliances first. People have an idea of what they want, what they're comfortable with, what looks good, what's their vibe. In some ways, I think it has a lot to do with the results we're hearing from people that the kitchen is the most public space in their home. They have a friend stop by to say hello, they're in the kitchen. They're entertaining people, people saunter into the kitchen. Their families having dinner every night. It's in the kitchen, and that has become I think a place where we're hearing a lot in the survey about personalization, where that kitchen represents who I am. I'm the one with the glass front fridge. I'm the one with the kind of 8-burner. I'm a cook. I'm an entertainer. It says a lot about who you are, and those appliances. I love to hear Devoree's conversation about why appliance first, because that's what we're hearing from the survey, that's the first decision.
Yeah, so I would say that the appliances really set the foundation of the kitchen. There are electrical requirements that help, affect the design of the kitchen. There are plumbing requirements that affect the design of the kitchen. So you really need to think about how you're going to use the space. Are you going to have a range? Are you going to have a wall oven and a cooktop? Those are decisions that you need to make before you choose cabinetry, before you do anything else. So you really need to do your research. You really need to think about it. You really need to talk to people who have done it to understand what works for them, what they like, what they don't like. And, it's a big investment. So people do a lot of research, and they really are mindful of how they're going to use the space, and that really lays a foundation for the design of the kitchen.
Right, and it's not an easy task to make a change.
Yeah, that's true.
A change in a kitchen can often require a gut reno.
Yeah, it's very costly.
And now there's so many new appliances,
Yeah.
and so many appliances that people are like, how did I ever live without these refrigerator doors? How did I ever live without the steam? And can you talk about, now that's changed how the islands work and how,
Well, hang on a minute. Before
Yeah.
we get to that, I think it's important to note that we're having really multiple conversations about the kitchen.
Yeah.
There is one conversation, which is the heart of the home, traditional main kitchen. There is a secondary conversation, which is a sub-kitchen within the main kitchen, being a scullery, butler's pantry, coffee bar, wine bar, certain areas in adult use. I talked to a designer who had clients that so loved sodas that they had a mixing station where they have like 5 different taps and they can change their soda kegs out whenever they want to, which is just extraordinary. Then a third conversation is the outside of the main kitchen. So you're talking about your outdoor kitchen spaces, you're talking about your ensuite kitchenettes, you're talking about your ensuite outdoor kitchenettes, which is happening a lot in multi-kitchen households. It's just extraordinary. Devoree, I'm curious, when it comes to budget, let's start at the very basics. Talking about if a homeowner has a fixed budget, where to start? What is the budget? You deal with budgets all the time. Sometimes they're fixed. They're not usually fixed. They're just not fully stated.
Yes, I fully agree with that. And, I think what we try to do is speak to a customer or a client to understand how they're going to use the space, right? I have a friend that I spoke to that said, we use a lot of ice and we do a lot of iced coffee, and my kids leave to school with an iced coffee. Okay, we need to plan for an ice maker. If you speak to a client who has an indoor-outdoor flow, we need to plan for that. An outdoor kitchen, and an indoor kitchen, what's going to work in each space? How are they going to use the space? Are they going to have a secondary kitchen? All these things need to be discussed in order to start laying out a plan. So, I think it's about defining what's the most important appliance for them first, and understand where most of the budget is going to go to, and then we do the fill-ins after that.
I have a qualifying question, just as a brief follow-up. Is it the most essential appliance or the most expensive appliance?
I think the most essential, and then we figure it out from there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we had a fantastic dinner at AJ Madison. They host the most elegant, beautiful dinners. And we had about 20 big designers, architects, and builders from Atlanta in their showroom. And we had a fun night. We went around the table and asked, how many kitchens have you done in a single home? And it was like a contest. Somebody's like, I just did 7.
Yeah.
You know, the main kitchen, the chef's kitchen, the playroom kitchen. Sorry.
Well, what I think is interesting too is when it comes to the kitchen itself and multitudes of kitchens, there's an inextricable link between potential, budget, and reality.
Yes, that's true.
And reality is often the thing that can kill a budget conversation. And so I think it's interesting. You know, I love the conversation. How many kitchens have you put into a project? But that's not reality for the majority majority of people who are new build. We're talking reso, right?
Yeah.
We're talking residential projects for new build or refurbishing or remodeling. As you work with the design community on behalf of their clients, I'm curious what you're finding real time as far as what designers are doing that make the most sense, in the sense of, you know, maybe 7 kitchens in a home isn't something that is real for everybody.
Right.
But where are they finding the most value? Is it brand loyalty? Is it project availability? Is it maybe because drawers are available with one brand or better with one brand than not another? What are you finding?
So we're finding with that what's been exclusive to luxury in the past has crossed price points, right? So if something is very important to somebody and it might not be in the budget, a designer is willing to put in a lower budget item in order to get the most important things at the right fit for the customer. So what I would say is, right, they focus. Let's talk about the cooking. The cooking is the single most important, in my opinion, in the kitchen, right? But, you know, a customer will say they want an ice maker. Okay, so maybe you don't have to get the ice maker, but fit in the ice maker into the budget, and you'll do that on a lower price point. You know, we'll add maybe the wine maker, the wine cooler. It's important. Let's put it in, but maybe we don't have to spend that high price point as we did on the range and the refrigerator. So they're adding in these items, but at a lower price point. So I would say you define what luxury is. You define what you need, what's right for you. Luxury is not necessarily the brand that you pick. This is obviously just my opinion, but it's about how you're using the space. It's luxury for you. If you want coffee in the master bedroom, that's luxury. If you want to have an extra refrigerator drawer so that your kids can access yogurt in the morning and they don't have to open up the large refrigerator, that's luxury to me. And you can do that at a smaller price point.
I was going to say that what I'm seeing, having worked with interior designers and architects for decades, the professional interior designer and architect, and at Luxe, we don't take any homeowner houses, homeowner designed houses. We only showcase professionally designed homes, new build, reno, everything. What we find is that professional designers and architects really have the drawings and the outlines done with a budget attached, because the biggest disappointment that a designer will have is not getting hired again by the family because they went over budget. That's where it happens. Now, they tell me that their budgets are very clear, and if they're at an AJ Madison showroom and a client says, "Oh gosh, I have to have that fridge," or "I have to have that appliance," and it's $10,000 over budget, what a good designer will say is, "Okay, what are we going to reduce? Do you want the living room rug budget cut? Do you want to cut out the, I don't know what, somewhere else?" Because they don't want to end up in a situation where the client's like, "Wait a minute, we're $50,000 over budget at the end of the day, and this is a problem.
Yeah, but let me ask you something. Budget is that issue. It's that issue because I think oftentimes clients establish a budget without a full understanding of what it is that they actually want. You'll see something on, and we'll talk about this in a little bit too, but you'll see something on social media with a 7-kitchen home. It's like a client will say, oh, I want that. Well, not only don't you want that, you don't want to pay for it, you won't use it, it won't serve you the way that you hope it will, but it sounds really cool. Are clients cognizant of budgets, especially in light of the last 5 years between supply chain and tariff issues and the overall biggering of this particular space in not just one central location, but in multiple locations? Do you find when you talk to clients, even if their designers are there or not, do they understand budget? Is it a confidence issue or is it a misunderstanding?
What I'm hearing from a lot of architects and designers is when somebody has a realistic expectation and they outline the kitchen they want and they find out the budget, they either say, I'm not going to do it now, I'm going to hold off, because they're not interested in doing what they don't want. And I think that the tariffs created a situation where there was a lot of wait and see. Is it going to be more expensive? And people put the project on hold. Very few people say, I'm going to gamble, let's do it, and I'll see what it is later on. Because nobody wants to be in a situation where product has come in and they're like, now I don't want it.
I think a great designer helps the customer define the point where want and need intersect. And, a customer, specifically as it relates to a kitchen, is not moving into a house without a kitchen. They may move into a house without furniture. They may move into a house without some of the other things. They may do an outdoor kitchen at a later point, but the kitchen is essential. The kitchen is part of the need as they move in. They cannot move in without it. So I think that is why they're willing to stretch a little bit in the kitchen. And again, it's their emotional connection to a place where the family is going to spend a lot of time. It's their emotional connection to food. I think about this a lot, obviously, in our industry and where we are. I spoke about the planning phase, and we obviously come in, at the early onset of a project, but when it gets to the end of the project, when they're actually executing the order, sometimes they do have to cut. But I think it's a good time to remind everybody that it's a temporary painful point, even if they're going to spend it. We call it like a tip. It's painful, it's temporary, as opposed to not making the right decision and trying to cut budget in the last minute and then having a long-term pain because you made the wrong decision or you cut in the wrong places, and then you have to live with the decision for a long time.
Do you find status is an issue? The issue of the status symbol? Like, and Jill,
well,
I think...
I actually had dinner with a designer last night, and he told me that he occasionally gets brands selected because somebody says, we're going to sell this house in 5 to 7 years and I need to have these appliances. And I think that's when status, I think my personal feeling is that people, if they're planning to live there for 20 years and this is a kitchen they're using and they're a cook, they're making decisions that work for their daily life and not resale. And so I do think it's...
Well, I'm curious, Devoree, are you finding that too, that customers are tailoring their appliance selection based on how they live, or is resale value still a factor? Or if their designer tells them, hey, I think we can get into Luxe if we...
No, designers don't do that.
Oh, yes, they do.
I think that's a different subject. There are people that really want their home in a magazine.
Yes.
But they're looking at how to make everything like editorially glamorous. I can't, if you if you read all the shelter magazines, I think we prioritize. We've got to have a great living room and a great kitchen to publish. But I can't imagine that somebody's picking a specific appliance.
No, well, that falls into the status symbol conversation, and that's what I'm asking about.
Okay.
Between the status symbol or selecting an appliance package and selecting what it's specifying on behalf of the client based on what they think looks great because it's represented elsewhere or because that's what they really want.
Yeah. So I would say that the status symbol is also associated with longevity. And so somebody might associate a Sub-Zero with longevity and status, and it's going to last for 25 years, as opposed to somebody who might have a regular refrigerator that they're going to replace 2 to 3 times in that same time period. So yeah, a little bit, for sure. But I think it's more around longevity, quality, and least issues and service issues with the appliances.
Do you find that there is a more emotional connection to certain appliance brands now than there used to be, whereas in the past it was more of a function of pure functionality, and now they kind of fall in love with a brand for a litany of reasons? But is there an emotional connection to brands now?
I would say no.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think it's an emotional connection, again, to how they're going to use it. I think people have more of an emotional connection to the category, so more of an emotional connection to appliances because they're going to use them and they're going to entertain and they're going to create beautiful food and they're going to host, as opposed to like your backsplash or your wallpaper. You're not going to be as emotionally connected to that as to the single item that's going to create memories for your family, and that's food. And food is created with a range. It's created with a wall oven. It's created with a cooktop. It's stored in a refrigerator. So that's how I see that.
I also did a very interesting panel a year ago with kitchen designers, and it was part of our Sub-Zero tour. And the room had 50 or more interior designers that specialized in kitchens. What was so interesting to me is they were so on top of new technology, new surfaces, new things coming out. My feeling is that the interior design community is very comfortable taking a client into an AJ Madison, for the client to say, well, we want refrigerator doors, we want steamer. Which brand is doing, what? Which brand is, has the right buttons for me, is going to be the right whatever, because, you're on top of what's coming out today.
Yeah.
And many interior designers are doing, 4 houses a year, and it might not, they just might not be plugged into new technology and innovation.
And I think that's where our sales staff does, and our appliance advisors, they do a great job keeping the designers informed of new products coming out, and advising them what might be the right products for these customers. We really do a good job trying to understand the lifestyle of the customer to really make the right recommendations.
And even those of us in the industry, for example, we're publishing hundreds of kitchens a year. Well, these were all shot 6-8 months ago, so they were purchased a year ago.
Yeah.
So if I went to AJ Madison today or going through this show, I'm going to see new things that are coming out that you're starting to tell people about.
Yeah.
And, unless you're inside the industry and you're really, you're really knowledgeable about the product, you really can't advise a client without that kind of knowledge.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because therein lies the rub with anti-social media. And it's funny, in case you couldn't tell, I am not a fan of social media. I'm really not. However, I do recognize certain value and certain opportunities. Sous vide, for example.
Yeah.
Like a potential homeowner may be scrolling and see a designer who really represents and talks about sous vide well in how they may cook, and a homeowner might find themselves saying, you know what, I like that idea. I would like to look at incorporating that into the kitchen. Do you find that a lot? And maybe that's that's sort of a different look at the status symbol versus intent, right? Do you find a lot of clients learning about it that way and coming in and asking for things like sous vide, for example, that they could incorporate? You talk about the ice maker. Don't get me started on ice makers, because whether you go nugget or barrel, everyone's got their preference, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But social media is actually good in that regard, where you can learn a little bit more about.
But social media is channeling. You're only seeing something that they know appeals to you. It's very, very narrow.
Not always. I mean, the algorithm. I get it.
The algorithm has gotten more and more narrow.
But I'll give you sous vide is an example. Induction might be another one.
Right, but you can certainly also forget about social media. You can go online and read consumer reviews of people that own a product, and hear from them. It's kind of like picking a hotel. I look at the most recent, the last 25 people that were there in the last 2 weeks, and they say it's spotless clean, the service is great. I trust it more than the last review being 3 years ago.
Yeah. I think social media is good to get information in front of a lot of people very quickly, right? So new features, and it's a good way for a consumer to do research. And then we have to start narrowing it down and saying what's important for you. Like, let's talk about the focal point of the kitchen. What's going to be what is the eye going to be drawn to first? Okay, so let's invest, let's say, in the range, okay? And then you start narrowing it down from there, but also understanding how they're going to use the space, again, and what's needed. If you have a family that's eating dinner at different times, you might want to incorporate a warming drawer into the kitchen, and build it out that way. And they might not even have known about it before, but they would be able to find out that information on social media.
You are listening to the KBIS series presented by AJ Madison. We'll be right back. AJ Madison Pro is the industry's trusted appliance source for professionals who need fast, reliable access to top brands. Backed by nationwide shipping and a powerful logistics network, delivery is precise and dependable. With over 150 premium brands, including Sub-Zero, Wolf, and Cove, Miele, Viking, Thermador, Gaggenau, and more, AJ Madison Pro is your single source for appliance specification. Qualified builders and architects can save up to 15% on luxury brands through exclusive trade programs, with registration handled for you. AJ Madison Pro, smarter appliance sourcing starts at ajmadison.com/pro.
Devoree, what do you see? Last night, the designer I was with said, oh gosh, we're doing so many Butler's Pantry. We're also doing so many little breakfast rooms now. What do you see trend-wise that has become more of a norm than an exception?
I'm actually excited about this because we're incorporating a lot of this into our Houston showroom. So we have a bar area, and not the traditional, basement bar that was just a couple of seats and, a bunch of drinks, but also refrigeration that supports that. You might have an ice maker down there and a beverage center that has can and bottle storage, and maybe, a wine storage and a beer tap, things like that. Or as Josh said, some soda tap. And then we have a breakfast nook, which might have, a small drawer refrigerator that the kids can access for some yogurt or some cheese. We're doing some of that, or maybe a coffee nook. We're also seeing makeup refrigeration in the bathroom in very hot areas, so you want to store your skincare properly. I have ideas a dime a dozen on what we can do for appliances, but I'm also seeing a lot of people incorporating. We had a customer once purchase 5 coffee makers, and what do you need 5 coffee makers for? And so they put a coffee maker in the master suite, and they had one in the office, and one in the pool area, and one in the guest suite.
The last few show houses that Kips Bay had, there's always a bathroom now where you open the cabinetry and there's the towels on the right and there's the coffee maker on the left. It's like making your tea or coffee, having your kind of spa morning.
Yeah, and to me, that exudes, if we want to talk about luxury, that exudes luxury to me, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. Call it word association.
Okay.
Because if you look at the word luxury, it has become so overused in our industry. It's everything, and it's all-encompassing, and it's catch-all, right? If we did a brief word association, and I were to ask each of you what luxury is, if you could define luxury, and I realize that it's going to change in certain scenarios, but if you had to boil down luxury, what would it be?
I would not define luxury by brand. I would define luxury by enhancements to my lifestyle. What makes it easier for me to live my busy life so it makes things seamless for me.
Jill?
So, because of my lifestyle, I would say luxury is free time, because I have none of it. But I do look forward to Saturdays and Sundays getting up and like having my coffee without running to the Zoom and running to, get dressed and all of that. Luxury to me is like enjoying, really, it does have a lot to do with the kitchen. A nice long cup of coffee, having breakfast, like at my, being able to enjoy those things that are sensory that we rush through in the morning.
When we were having our call, Devoree, I think you mentioned, having kids with a refrigerator in their room for cold drinks. But like you're talking about, Jill, the ability on a Sunday morning to have an ensuite kitchenette with your coffee maker, small refrigeration, where you can just do the New York Times cross, have your cup of coffee, and just sort of chill. Not walking downstairs maybe and coming back up. Maybe that's luxury.
Yeah, I believe it. And Suzanne Kasler, great designer, good friend of mine, did a beautiful house. Probably the first person I saw, 15 years ago, where I'd stay at her house. And outside of her master bedroom, she had a beautiful little suite with a TV and, a sunken little living room that was just for her and her husband when they went upstairs. And they had a closet that opened. It had full, coffee, refrigeration, milk, whatever, that they could get up on a Saturday morning, not go downstairs and like change the whole, see all the kids and the grandchildren, all of that. And she had a bar and she had a coffee pantry. So you went in for guests and you could do, various types of coffee with the cups and the mugs and the different, it was a very lovely way to have kind of a guest house. And that, I thought, the first time I went there, it was very luxurious because there were so many places you could entertain. She had a bar off the dining room. And actually last night, and in the survey, here's a shocker. The survey, we asked about what homeowners are building in the home, gyms, bars, wellness centers, etc., saunas. And one of the number one things was that 90% of the homeowners in every region of ours had a bar in the home, and 70% had a wine cellar. Now I thought nobody was
I think
drinking
that's a
anymore.
post-COVID situation
I was like,
going
nobody's
on.
drinking anymore. So last night I told this designer I had dinner with, that's that, and he said, well, listen, we just finished a new build house for a couple. They don't drink at all, but they're like, we have to have a bar and a wine cellar. We have people over. We're not going to be able to sell our house if we don't have that. That's a major entertaining section in a home now. And you can't have a bar without refrigeration and ice. And so and he actually said to me, and we've published, it's Ben Johnson. We've published him in Houston many times. He's our Sub-Zero design icon this year. And one of the things he said to me last night was, the kitchen expands throughout the house. You see the kitchen out the side door is the outdoor kitchen. You see the kitchen expanding into the bar and the living room,
Yes.
you can kind of there's spaces throughout the house that have to do with entertaining and convenience.
I agree, and I think a lot of that is a byproduct of COVID. I
Yes.
think when people couldn't go out to bars, they didn't change behavior. They just brought that back home, and they entertained. We sold a ton of pizza ovens during
Yes,
COVID.
yes.
We sold a ton of bar equipment, and I don't mean like beer taps, even though we sold tons of those, but like wine coolers and beverage centers, and
Well, also, remote work has required half the population to have a home office.
yes.
So, I've been in plenty of home offices where somebody has a little kitchenette on the side because
Yes.
they're Zooming all day and they have 5 minutes to grab.
And also, think about just, things that we've been saying, a lot more laundry being done in the house, right? Because
Yes.
people are not getting as dressed anymore. It's become
Yes.
a little bit more casual, right? So I have, for example, 2 washer dryer sets in my house. We have a busy household, and, we can't afford for one machine to be down, right?
Right,
If one machine
exactly.
goes down, we're out of luck. And the machines are always running, and
Yes.
that's a luxury for me, but it's
Yes.
really a necessity. But some might consider it a luxury. So, right, it's about what's a need for me.
The other trend, and I know this is true luxury, but a lot of people did this during COVID. They had a house by the beach or out in the country, and their kids came out to stay there.
Yeah.
And the next thing they knew, there were too many people, and they, converted the garage to a guest house, or they bought the house next door. And we're seeing this multi-generational living has become a very big trend. It can be fancy, it can be not fancy. But when you go to these multi-generational places, I've shot a lot of houses where the main kitchen is like the family eats there together. Then the guest house or whatever where the kids come for the weekend might have a smaller kitchen, but this multi-generational thing creates, the outdoor kitchen where everybody congregates, and it becomes more of a there is different levels of convenience for every age group.
Yeah.
So, and also I think a lot of people post-COVID, decided to be closer to their family.
Yes.
In addition to the longevity,
Yeah.
aging in place, and durability,
Yes.
I think there's been a drive towards durability and more long-lasting approach, and I bet you probably see that as well.
Yeah, I think people are definitely thinking about the long term and how they might use the appliances in the future. So planning for the future a little bit, as they age, what their access is going to be for the appliances. So they might do a range for now and a wall oven for the future that might be easier to access. So people are really thinking about this as they plan their houses. And again, remember, this is a one-time expense. It doesn't really come around again.
Yeah, it's true.
The aging in place thing, I think, is really interesting because when you get it, aging in place and durability go together. Once you learn your kitchen, once you learn how you live, you've designed with intent, you've designed with purpose, you use it a certain way. The last thing we've had these conversations, the last thing anyone wants to do once they have it the way they want it is now to have to change it and go in a different direction.
100%. So think about your drawer refrigerators that might serve a purpose for yogurt and cheese for the children now, but as you age, might be just easier access for you, or when you don't need this big refrigerator and you can just use a smaller refrigerator, or if it's a summer home and you're just coming in for the weekend and you don't need so much, where you can just use a smaller refrigerator. So these are just things to think about as you plan.
Do you find hospitality as an influence now with regard to residential design and architecture? Are you seeing that as well?
I think, there are a lot of people who come back from a beautiful resort or hotel, and they're like, I got spoiled in my hotel room. I had this. I realized the convenience of it. There is, I think it is honestly for the true luxury client because they're traveling to places and experiencing different things.
Isn't every client a luxury client, whether it's aspirational or in practice?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When I would go to LA to go to the Legends event, Legends of La Cienega, one year I stayed at the Le Parc Hotel. And the Le Parc has en-suites. And it was the coolest thing because the vibe, it's not a new hotel, but the vibe was so cool because every room had a little, ours had a little step-down kitchenette, which had everything you wanted and really nothing more. And the room was so cool and the vibe was so great, it felt like home. And that seems to always be the aspirational element. Like that's always what you strive for, is to make it feel like home.
Yes.
Right?
100%. The luxury is it feels homey. It feels like you're close to home. It feels like I'm at home, but in a different setting, or, I love that.
You know what's funny is I'm not sure that we've gotten to the essence of budget and affordability. That's the tough question.
Well, may I suggest one thing? One is, when it comes to budget, there's so many different things to consider, and one is the value of your home. So remember, if you are hiring an interior designer, a professional interior designer, you're already at a base level where you've got an expense. And if you're doing a kitchen, no designer's going to take you on if you have a totally unrealistic budget. They're going to say, listen, you're not going to get far with this. So if you're that relationship, I mean, most designers know now that if they're not upfront about budgets and realistic with clients, they're going to end up with a relationship where it's not going to end well. And I think that the designers I know are professional enough. They have contracts, and they really go through brands and information with clients before they enter it. So I think that the people who really get caught up are not working with professional enough designers. That's my opinion.
And that's the interesting part too, is the idea of working with a designer. I think that design is a right, not a privilege. I think that everyone should have access to an interior designer. Because what designers do is they make your life better. At the same time, I'm curious, do you think designers at large have a hard time pressing clients on budget? And if they do, is it because clients don't always know what their budget is, or maybe it's because they do know what the budget is and they just don't want to fully share it?
I would say that, I can really speak for myself, and then I can give my professional opinion, but, I've worked with designers and they're like, well, what's your budget? And I always say, I don't know what my budget is. My budget is if I like it and I want it and it fits in my space, that's what I want to do, and I'm going to figure out a way to pay for it. Obviously, that's not a normal way to run a project, but what I find is that designers understand what things need to cost, and they know what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. They usually are able to come in, they're able to save money, they have their discounts that they're able to bring to their table. They're able to advise in a way that saves the customer money long term. They know what makes sense to invest in. They know what doesn't make sense to invest in. And so they're giving their invaluable advice and helping move the project along. I also think they help make decisions, right? I say this to the salespeople all the time. The customer needs your help to make a decision.
Yes.
They need to decide, and not making a decision costs money, right? It's another week that you're paying rent in another space or paying a double mortgage if you're not making a decision. So I would say that having a designer is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah, also the designers all share with me, because we're shooting and they're planning, they do drawings. And they all understand it's appliance first. If they're doing a drawing where you're going to have a double sub-zero, whatever, they've drawn it in a certain way. And they're saying, here's the cost of this cabinetry, of this, okay, and this island. And if these are their costs and you're comfortable with this, or you think it's too high, we're either going to redraw this and choose something else, or we're going to go into some of the other rooms of the house and see what is less important to you. So I will tell you, I was at a very interesting conference a few months ago, and the owners' reps that deal with really big projects were there. And they said that the number one issue with people that hire them is that if they've had an experience where somebody wasn't either honest with the budget, or they found out that payment wasn't made to subcontractors, they don't want to work with those people anymore. I think there's a lot of, right now, a very high value on the honesty and the transparency of what things are going to cost. I don't think we're in an era where people are like, don't worry, we'll figure it out later.
No, no. I don't think so either.
No surprises.
No.
Yeah. No surprises.
Surprises have to be the worst.
Well, that's why the tariff, situation,
Yeah.
where it was like maybe not, threw everybody into a tizzy.
And at the end of the day, is it fair to say use your resources? Designers, use your resources.
100%.
Use your showroom partners. Use the media. Yes. Use your resources. And clients, I think every client should have a designer, because designers make life better.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, and I wrote this down coming into this, we are a desire business. Mm-hmm. We're a desire business in the service industry. And at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to that, right? What did I miss?
The only line that I tell all of our teams all the time: proper planning prevents poor performance. The 5 Ps.
What a great way to end this thing. That is perfect. And you will find more nuggets of gold like that. If you're listening, go to the show notes. There'll be links to everything you heard here. Jill, Devoree, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Another absolutely incredible conversation recorded live from the KBIS podcast studio, presented by AJ Madison Pro in Orlando, Florida. 2026. What an incredible KBIS this was. Thank you, Marnie, for helping me produce this. Thank you, Leanne, for making this possible from Flying Camel. And thank you, Amy, and your whole team from AJ Madison for sponsoring the KBIS podcast studio and being such great partners. Thank you to everyone who took part in this incredible event, this activation from KBIS. The ideas espoused here, the learnings, the strategies, the techniques, ways to help designers be the absolute best that they can be through knowledge and practical application of new industry standards and adopting new strategies and adapting to new policy. It's amazing. This was an incredible event, and I can't wait to see you next year. Thanks for listening. See you next time.